Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, and today I wanted to do a matchup breakdown and a game prediction of Week 2, Mizzou versus Kansas State. I wanted to make a video a little bit earlier previewing this game, but I just didn't have the time. But I figured I would make a video. I'm recording this on 9/9/22, so it's the night before the game. So I will have this up first thing tomorrow morning, and I will premiere it. So that way, those of you who wanted to hear from me can listen to what I have to say about the game. Maybe you're going to the game, you can listen to this on your drive down there, or you're just chilling out before the game at your house, and you're getting ready for the game because it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. I know we all hate those, but it is what it is. If Mizzou starts winning more, maybe we'll get more of those night games and those afternoon kickoffs, because I know it sucks having to get up early, but hey, a lot of you guys, you're already drinking by that time anyway, right? And it's still early in the season. Football's back. We're all still excited. We still get that feeling like, yo, football is back. So you're getting up early. You're already ready for the game probably by like 9, 10 o'clock. So yeah. I'm sure it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about this game. So I thought between the two teams, Mizzou and Kansas State, and how they both performed in Week 1, I thought Mizzou looked a lot more impressive than K-State did in their game against South Dakota. Mizzou actually played Louisiana Tech, which is a step up. They're a group of 5 school, whereas K-State played South Dakota, which is FCS, and I thought Mizzou looked a lot more impressive against LA Tech than K-State did against South Dakota, which is an even worse team. Let's start with Mizzou, though. So, Mizzou's defense was dominant against LA Tech. The offense still put up a lot of points, sure, but Mizzou scored a defensive touchdown in that game, and you have to start with the defense, especially with how bad Missouri's defense was last year. Yeah, they cleaned it up towards the end of the year, but at one point last year, they were the worst rushing defense in the entire country. After Week 1, and yes, it's early in the season, Missouri currently sits at number 1 in the country in rush defense after only allowing 8 yards against Louisiana Tech. And I don't care what team you're playing, only allowing 8 rushing yards is damn impressive. And Missouri's going to have to replicate that performance again against Kansas State, because Kansas State has arguably one of the best running backs in the country in Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn ran for over 1,400 yards last year as a sophomore and was an all-Big 12 selection. I think it is vital that Mizzou is able to neutralize Deuce Vaughn in this game, because if they're able to do that, I actually think K-State is pretty one-dimensional, and taking away Deuce Vaughn would make them, a lot more beatable. On top of that, quarterback Adrian Martinez, who Kansas State fans are like really high on, and I don't quite get it, but yeah, he's a good rushing threat too, so you're going to need to be able to stop the run. But I thought it was strange that, Kansas State kind of hid him in Week 1 against South Dakota. They didn't really ask him to do much. He didn't really do anything. He only threw for 53 yards, and he had the lowest QBR in the Big 12 out of all the quarterbacks. You would think that Kansas State would maybe want to get him going a little bit throwing the ball, especially when they were facing an FCS opponent, but apparently not. Because here's the thing. Kansas State is going to have to throw the ball in this game and throw it effectively if they want to beat Missouri, because again, Missouri's rush defense was really good. If they're anywhere near as effective in this game, Kansas State is going to have to throw the ball, and they're going to have to throw it well, because guess what? Missouri's pass defense also seems to be pretty strong this year. They did have a couple mishaps in Week 1 against LA Tech where they allowed a long touchdown, but I think you can attribute those to being, early in the year, and the Missouri defense still figuring things out with a brand new defensive coordinator and a lot of new players. But for the most part, they were shut down against Louisiana Tech. They recorded 3 interceptions and even returned one for a defensive touchdown. Transfer Joseph Charleston looks great. Jalen Carles, who's one of the leaders of the defense, looks great. Drayden Norwood put in good snaps. You have a healthy Ennis Rakestraw, who also played pretty well last week. Tyron Hopper is a very good coverage linebacker. Missouri is loaded. Compared to last year, these guys can hit and run. And I think this is one of the most talented defenses Missouri has had since they've came to the SEC, to be quite honest with you. I think Drinkwitz absolutely nailed the transfer portal this offseason, and Missouri was able to add so much defensive depth because of it. Another area in which Missouri improved is the defensive line. I mean, they added a lot of guys there too, like Christian Williams and Jaden Jernigan from Oklahoma State, who also was a part of the defense last year that held Deuce Vaughn to only like 20 rushing yards or something crazy like that when K-State played Oklahoma State last year. Trajan Jeffcoat is back. Isaiah McGuire is back. The Missouri defensive line was also chasing around LA Tech's quarterback every single play, it seemed like, last game. I mean, Missouri made it almost impossible for LA Tech to move the ball. So one of the matchups I'm most interested in this weekend is Missouri's defense versus K-State's offense, because I hear so many great things about Adrian Martinez, and I'm just not buying it. The guy was a turnover machine at Nebraska, and I don't think that's all of a sudden changed just because he transferred to K-State. K-State does have some skill position players you got to worry about, like Deuce Vaughn and senior receiver Malik Knowles, but I think Missouri's defense, like I said, they're a lot more talented. They can fly around. They hit and run. I think they can take down the K-State offense. I don't think K-State is a juggernaut by any means. They're a good early season test, and they're a solid team. But offensively, I think Missouri will be able to handle them. Now let's take a look at the other side of the ball. So Missouri's offense last week left some things to be desired. They didn't play bad by any means, but they definitely left some things to be desired. And I think they're going to have to be more efficient and effective than they were last week against LA Tech if they want to beat K-State. Let's start with quarterback Brady Cook. So he was nothing spectacular. He was solid. He got the job done. And I think that's exactly what Mizzou fans should have expected. And I think you can be happy with that because he's still an upgrade over what we saw from Connor Bazelak most of the time last year. Yeah, he's a threat to run. Connor Bazelak simply wasn't. That's an element that Brady Cook adds that Connor Bazelak simply didn't, is the ability to run. Brady Cook is a threat with his legs. He even had a rushing touchdown last week against LA Tech. And also, he has really good footwork. He's very instinctual, and I saw him evade pressure quite a few times against LA Tech. On plays where I was for sure he was going to get sacked, he found a way to escape. So I think that's an underrated part of his game. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't spectacular. I know a lot of fans probably wanted more from him, and that's okay. But it was still only like his third start ever. And you can tell, at least, from my perspective, I think he's rushing through his reads a little bit. And that's something that, will improve over time. As he gets more experience, he'll get better. The game will slow down for him a little bit. I still thought we saw some accurate passes from him. He has a nice touch on his passes, in my opinion. You'd like to see him connect a little bit more on the deep ball, unlike what we saw in the LA Tech game. He tried a few times to go deep to Luther Burden, and it just didn't quite work out. I think we'll see Brady Cook get more comfortable, and I think we'll start to see him develop more of a connection with the receivers on this roster. Mizzou tried to clearly get Luther Burden involved week one, and it worked out. I thought he lived up to the hype. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. He was able to make guys miss. He has, speed to burn. And so does Dominic Lovett. I thought, Dominic Lovett wasn't getting enough praise for the way he played in week one. Luther Burden obviously was getting all the hype, and rightfully so, but Dominic Lovett is a perfect complement to him, and that dude is also very shifty and very quick, and he can score at any moment when he gets the ball in his hands. I know a lot of people were also talking about Mookie Cooper after the game, how he wasn't really involved. How can we get him involved? I will point out the fact that he was putting in effort blocking for Mizzou last week. I know on Nathaniel Pete's touchdown run, he was doing a lot of the dirty work blocking downfield. He's always been someone that's been an underrated blocker. And look, he will get his chance. I firmly believe that, and this week might be his chance. This might be the week where, K-State isn't really accounting for him. They're worried about Luther Burden because Luther Burden has potentially be the best player on the field for this game. And that's where someone like Mookie Cooper or maybe like Toski Dove will be able to make an impact. If there's one area on Mizzou's team where I'm a little bit concerned about heading into this weekend, though, it's K-State's defensive line versus Mizzou's offensive line. Mizzou's offensive line wasn't a disaster or anything against LA Tech, but, there's a lot of new guys that are starting on that line or being put in a position that they probably weren't anticipating being in, such as Connor Tollison, who, I think the team and the coaches thought Bence Polgar was going to be able to be eligible this year and be the starting center. That didn't happen. His eligibility got denied for this year. So Connor Tollison got thrown in the mix, and then Hiron White would have been the team starting right tackle, and he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. And K-State does have a stout defense, and they had a couple all Big 12 preseason selections on the defensive side of the ball, including defensive end. I'll probably butcher his name, but his last name is hyphenated, but Uzama. That guy is really good. He was one of the highest graded defensive ends last week in the Big 12, so he's going to be someone to watch for. He could potentially wreck the game plan a little bit depending on how he plays and Mizzou's offensive line holds up. But even if they don't, I still think Mizzou will be able to run the ball effectively. They were able to against LA Tech. And I do like Mizzou's stable of running backs. There was concern about Mizzou's running backs heading into this year. I think it's clear after game one that Nathaniel Pete is the number one option, and he played really well. Cody Schrader is also very solid, and I honestly think Elijah Young should be getting more carries. That guy could break off a long one at any moment for a touchdown. He has that kind of speed. His problem is he's not as good in between the tackles, and he doesn't have great contact balance. He's an easy guy to knock down, but I mean, if he gets a crease or you can get him in the open field, he's very explosive. So I'd like to see him maybe get a few touches in this game, or a few more than he did last game. This will be a good game for the offense to show some progress. This is also a really big game because one, it's bragging rights. K-State, Mizzou, they're old Big 12 foes. There's been a lot of trash talk on Twitter. I've been involved with it. It's kind of funny, honestly, because K-State kind of talks about themselves like they're this blue blood program or something like that, and they're just not. I know they're a dark horse pick to win the Big 12 for a lot of people. I don't really see it. I still think they're a good, solid team this year, but nothing spectacular. Again, I'm not a believer in Adrian Martinez. But historically, Mizzou owns K-State in football. They had one good stretch with Bill Snyder where they won like 13 straight or whatever, and then Gary Pinkel kind of straightened that out, and Mizzou won 5 of 6 of the last matchups before Mizzou left for the SEC. So, I mean, Mizzou owns K-State in football, and it's just funny to see K-State talk about themselves like they're in the same conversation, because Mizzou pretty much blows their program out of the water in every perspective when it comes to NFL draft picks, bowl wins, bowl games, top 5 finishes. I mean, it's not close, and Mizzou leads the all-time series by a very wide margin. So this weekend is an opportunity for Mizzou to prove that being in the SEC means something, and they're still a superior program to Kansas State. Now, if they lose this game, there's no shame in losing to a team like K-State, but it would be kind of disappointing because I think it would say a lot about this season and that it's still another kind of transition, rebuilding year with Drinkwitz, and he's going to need a little bit more time to close the talent gap and add to the roster before we can really start talking about Mizzou contending in the SEC East. But if they win this game, it'll be a big statement win. It'll be an early season upset. It'll be a good win on their resume, and I think fans would like to see them win this game because it would just signify further that the program is heading in the right direction. Drinkwitz has been a great recruiter. We've yet to see results on the field yet, which is reasonable to expect given that most of his recruiting classes are still underclassmen right now. But at this point in his tenure, you'd like to see them make that kind of Arkansas-like jump because I think Arkansas is a popular measuring stick for fans to use given that Missouri and Arkansas are rivals and they both hired new head coaches at the same time. Sam Pittman and Eli Drinkwitz are constantly getting compared to each other and whatnot. From the K-State perspective, if they lose this game, I think it tells you that Missouri is the more talented team because I do think Missouri is the more talented team. They've added more talent since Eli Drinkwitz has become the head coach. Again, a lot of his talent is underclassmen, and they probably aren't going to be a factor in this weekend's game. But technically, Missouri is a more talented team. K-State is the more vetted team, which is why I think they're getting the edge in this game. They're favored for a reason. They're coming off an 8-win season last year. I get it. But if they lose this game, it just means they lost to a rising Missouri team and people kind of overrated K-State a little bit. Like, personally, I don't get the hype with K-State. I'm not saying they can't beat Missouri. Missouri has a very good chance of losing this game. But if K-State wins, it just means, well, they're a little bit better than Missouri, but it doesn't mean K-State is great either. I actually think these two teams are probably pretty evenly matched. I think a lot of the reason K-State is getting the edge is because this game is at home. And also, you look at Eli Drinkwitz's tenure so far, he has struggled on the road, but he has a chance to grab a big road win this weekend against K-State in year 3 as head coach. So I guess this is the part where I'm supposed to give my prediction. Like I said, I don't really see it with K-State. I think they're a solid team. I don't think they're this juggernaut. I think Missouri has a really good chance to win. It'll be a tough, hard-fought game by both teams. It's going to be a close one. It's on the road. K-State's crowd is going to be into it, but I got Missouri winning this one. I think they need to win this one, so I got them winning 31-27. And like I said, it'll be a close game. It'll be hard fought, but I say Mizzou pulls out the win, and it'll be a great win going forward. And hopefully that means we can get some national eyes on the program to give us credit, because I think Drinkwitz has done a great job, and Missouri just doesn't really get a lot of respect. I've been looking at some of these rankings from sites like Saturday Down South or 24/7 Sports or, the Paul Feinbaum Show or, whoever. And Missouri's always ranked at the bottom when it comes to talent, power rankings. And it's like, well, I saw South Carolina and Kentucky struggle against Miami, Ohio, and Georgia State. And why are they ranked ahead of Mizzou, who put away a mediocre opponent like they were supposed to and showed that they were actually pretty good? This is the kind of game where if Mizzou wants to start gaining some respect, they got to win. So I have them winning this game because I think they all know that. I think Drinkwitz is probably, he knows that. He's probably preaching to the team how important this game is. I think a lot of the players there probably understand the importance of this game. This game will tell us a lot about how Missouri's season is going to go. So, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a fun one. I'll be watching. But that's all I got for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the game today. I'm going to have a post-game show after the game today, probably with Connor afterwards. And we're going to have some fun. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about a Mizzou win. And you guys will be able to chat with us and we'll answer questions, all that good stuff. So, enjoy the game. All that being said, make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com, as I also wrote an article about the game late last night. And you'll be able to see it this morning before the game. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. And I will see you all in the next one. MIZ.